Hi, welcome to Celebrating Culture. I'm coming to you from the VA hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, a place where we care for those who have done so much for our freedom. In this episode, we're going to present to you organizations who are making that extra effort to honor those whose shoulders we stand on. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Our news spent 5 years touring Louisiana. We've interviewed countless numbers of people. The people that make it happen, that put on Mardi Gras, the chefs, the artists, the backbone of Louisiana. We've taken those interviews and made a show called Celebrating Culture. But we've also taken those interviews and put them in a tour app, New Orleans Insider Tours. To download the apps, all you have to do is point your phone at the flow code in the camera mode. Once you have the app downloaded, you'll have access to putting together the best game plan to experience in Louisiana. You can start with Little Palermo, which is 50 points of interest on the Italian community, and then go to Statue Stories and Spirits, over 150 stops in the French Quarter and CBD. Where to dine in New Orleans, what rooftop bars give you the best view, how to see the Gulf of Mexico from the coastal towns, driving up to the Bonnie and Clyde Museum near Shreveport, or up to Vicksburg. New Orleans and Louisiana are must-see for everyone, and there's so much to see. So we hope you enjoy it, and as we say here, let the good times roll. Hi, welcome to Celebrating Culture. We're here at the Southern Yacht Club with Mike Turner, who's the president of the Legion of Mars, and they're having a great event to honor veterans. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Charles.
How long have you guys been around?
We've been around, this is our 5th annual meeting, so 5 years.
And you came out of the Louisiana National Guard here.
Correct.
New Orleans is all about the Mardi Gras scene, but social philanthropy is a big part of that, and right. You guys created a crew of about 8 floats?
Yes, it varies, but we have 8 floats. One in particular that I'll mention is our Purple Heart float. So what we do is that we raise money, corporate and individual donors through the year, that we will sponsor 8 Purple Heart recipients on their own float, and they're recognized so that the crew pays their way. In addition, that fund will pay for World War II veterans, Korean and Vietnam veterans to attend our ball with a guest.
And the ball was at the Hyatt. It's a fabulous event.
Fabulous. We're trying to meld Mardi Gras tradition with a military dining out. And the dining out is where spouses are invited and meals provided.
Tails.
And that sort of thing.
We're talking
yes.
white tails. Yes.
It is.
Raising the money, you have a barbecue at the yacht club.
It's actually our annual meeting here, so we're here to celebrate with that.
Taking care of our veterans is something that's part of our culture.
Absolutely, and you know, New Orleans has a large veteran community, and it's very favorable with the VA center that we have here, the military bases that we have.
Here today with Lieutenant Colonel Gary Mason at the New Orleans Lakefront Airport. And we were here a few months ago as part of the World War II Museum Air Show. Tell me a little bit more about the Legion of Mars.
We're open to any military veteran, any military service member, active, reserve, or their family members, or their friends, which essentially opens it up to pretty much anybody.
You had like over 200 people, I think, in the parade.
There's hundreds of members. We don't have our own parade at the moment. We currently parade with another crew. A few years ago, we paraded with Allah, but our primary purpose in Mardi Gras is to involve ourselves in military philanthropy projects and honor veterans in any way we can.
This is all branches of the military.
Absolutely, all branches of the military. Anybody can be a member, anybody that appreciates patriotism.
Now, you made over 100 jumps?
Probably close to 100.
Probably
yes.
close. Again, I want to thank you for your service, for what you did for the country. And
it was fun. I had a good time.
I'm Memorial Day.
We'll gather some of our folks and we go out on Friday morning to lay flags out on the graves.
It's big. It's like, how many graves are there?
Oh, it's like 14,000. It's a lot. And so, but there's a big crew. It's impressive to see that operation.
I understand 2 veterans from Vietnam.
We do. We have a number of Vietnam. As a matter of fact, a story that 2 Marines in Vietnam hadn't seen each other since Vietnam. They're both members, and they both reconnected when they're here.
Wow.
So, that's really what we're all about, is trying to connect veterans. So we're available not just to locals, but to any service member that's around the country.
You were captain in the Navy.
Yes, retired. Yes.
And you went twice.
Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom.
The World War II Museum in New Orleans is blessed to have that museum here. You guys are very active, I'd imagine, with the World War II.
Absolutely. We try to participate with them as much as we can. We want to embed them in our parade. They have provided vehicles for the parade before. They call on us to help them with the World War II festival that they had out at the Lakefront Airport.
Yes, that's big. I mean, the amount of planes that fly in, the commemorative Air Force flies in. People can sign up and take a ride in a World War II plane. So if anybody wants to find out about the Legion of Mars, how do they find you
They
guys?
can go to our website, legionofmars.com. You can join online.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for being on this show and all that you're doing for veterans and in New Orleans. Just great. Celebrating Culture is brought to you by AWE News. AWE News also produces New Orleans Insider Tours, which are 10 self-guided tours of New Orleans and Louisiana. To download the apps, all you have to do is point your phone at the flow code in the camera mode, and you're ready to really experience Louisiana. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here today at New Orleans Lakefront Airport. I'm with Doc Heckert. Doc, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's a great inspiration for what you guys have done for New Orleans and now what you're doing for really the country.
Well, we've been blessed. We actually found the original aircraft that dropped the paratroopers over Normandy. It's called That's All Brother. There's historical references with the Air Force and in the history books. We found this airframe actually in what we call an aircraft boneyard up in Wisconsin. Once we verified its authenticity, we raised money up to $3 million and had this plane restored over a 2-year period. And I was fortunate to be selected as one of the pilots.
This is not just one of the planes.
This was the plane that led. This was the tip of the spear. We estimate about 75% of the aircraft has been refurbished. We have now installed all the radar and radio communication equipment that the airplane would have had on D-Day. So it is the most period and authentic C-47 that exists on the planet today. We do have modernized avionics and navigation equipment aboard the aircraft. There's no autopilot, it's still hand-flown.
Still hand-flown.
But I have all the navigation equipment to get me around the world, which is important because we're flying this airplane to France and to mainland Europe.
How big is the 75th anniversary of D-Day going to be?
It's huge. It's huge for a variety of reasons because this is the last time we're going to gather together the remaining heroes of World War II who are mostly in their 90s and dying off at a tremendous rate right now. Yesterday I had a 99-year-old aviator that came in that was a transport pilot on one of these aircraft. I watched him climb into the aircraft, get into the cockpit with me, and he pointed out to me where everything was. It was amazing.
With the trip leader, Mitch Mitchell. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How big is the commemorative Air Force?
Our wing itself has 8 flyable World War II aircraft, and we're stationed in San Marcos, Texas. All our airplanes are flyable and go to air shows to show people what actually those young men, 18, 19, 20-year-olds were doing during the Second World War.
This has got to be one of the favorite air shows to come to when they do this every October. The hangar here, or the terminal, goes back to the 1930s. Amelia Earhart came through here. You've got a great restaurant in here.
This terminal is awesome.
When you're flying the plane, do you see the passengers, do they really grasp where they are? I mean, in part of a history.
I believe they do, and I think they would not be here unless they had some draw to this. I had a gentleman today on your flight came up, and I took his hand and I put it on the control wheel and let him fly the airplane. And then I found out later he's a 2-star general in the Army.
I'm with General Arthur Abercrombie. General, welcome to the show.
Retired general.
Retired. Are you sure?
Positive.
So, General, you came down to New Orleans from Baton Rouge to be in a plane.
I did. It was absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's one of the most memorable days of my life, actually, to get to fly in the same plane as the guys that jumped out first in D-Day. I'll never forget it. They let us handle the static line and everything stood up, you know, hooked up.
Also got to put your hand on the wheel.
I did. I went up to the cockpit during the flight. The pilot said, grab the wheel, and he took his hands off. So I actually flew the plane.
You were flying us.
For about 10 seconds.
What did your wife have to say about that?
Well, I texted my wife the picture, and she wrote back, Lord, that's not necessary. I was actually smiling the entire time in the plane today. I never smiled when I was doing it real. I was scared to death.
You guys do need contributions to keep this going.
We are tremendously looking for sources of donations to help us in our effort here. The actual operating expense of this airplane, just to get it flying, is about $1,500 an hour. So we give tours. You went on a tour with us today. We try to carry a minimum of 7. We can take up to 13.
And as you go across the nation, people can sign up and reach you guys. How would they contact you?
Well, they could get online, let's say on Facebook and Central Texas Wing.
The October Air Show that the World War II Museum
Yes,
puts on?
this is one of the favorite places for us to come. It's only a few hours away for us, so if we're invited, we come. This is a great venue, New Orleans, with its rich military history here. Obviously, my mother was a military officer from here.
Now, your mother was a WWII?
She was. She was Women's Army Corps officer. She was trained as a Signal Corps officer and was attached to the Army Air Corps. And she taught radar techniques in Orlando, Florida.
And your dad?
And my dad was a Air Corps officer. He was a B-17 driver, 25 combat missions.
Doc, do you, as you're going through this step-by-step process, do you sense the importance of the mission? Getting the plane from city to city?
This, to me, is the epitome of a life well lived. That I'm able to have this opportunity and share this with other people, and to even just put my hands on these pieces of equipment, to me, is historic.
Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
There's a gentleman in your wing, so to speak, in Texas, that I understand is with the Doolittle group?
Yeah, we have a gentleman that's a member of the wing, and right now he's 102 years old, and he's still really sharp and comes out every now and then, and his name is Dick Cole, and actually he was Jimmy Doolittle's co-pilot for the Tokyo raid. Got forced down since they couldn't, they had to launch early because the Japanese, they thought the Japanese had spotted the carrier group that they were on. He survived with Doolittle. When he got out of China, he went through Burma, and he was looking for something to do. So they recruited him, and he flew the hump. And actually, he flew airplanes like this C-47 over the hump for a couple of years, and then actually became an air commando and everything. And he's quite a fellow, and he's got a book. He wrote a book about all this, and it's called Dick Cole's War.
Our news spent 5 years touring Louisiana. We've interviewed countless numbers of people. The people that make it happen, that put on Mardi Gras, the chefs, the artists, the backbone of Louisiana. We've taken those interviews and made a show called Celebrating Culture. But we've also taken those interviews and put them in a tour app, New Orleans Insider Tours. To download the apps, all you have to do is point your phone at the flow code in the camera mode. Once you have the app downloaded, you'll have access to putting together the best game plan to experience in Louisiana. You can start with Little Palermo, which is 50 points of interest on the Italian community, and then go to Statue Stories and Spirits, over 150 stops in the French Quarter and CBD. Where to dine in New Orleans, what rooftop bars give you the best view, how to see the Gulf of Mexico from the coastal towns, driving up to the Bonnie and Clyde Museum near Shreveport, or up to Vicksburg. New Orleans and Louisiana are must-see for everyone, and there's so much to see. So we hope you enjoy it, and as we say here, let the good times roll. Welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here today at the Hammond Airport on a B-29 Fifi, and I'm with Doug Rosendahl.
Hi.
Of the Commemorative Air Force. Doug, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
You guys get a lot of places you go every year.
Yeah, well, the Commemorative Air Force, we have about 175 airplanes scattered all across America in about 75 wings and squadrons, and we use these airplanes as a tool to tell a story. We believe that the story of World War II and the lessons that we learned in that time period are incredibly relevant today. It's trite but true that the history we forget will be bound to relearn, and the horrific price that was paid by an entire generation of young Americans 75 years ago, it would be a travesty to let that sacrifice be in vain. So we work hard to keep those stories and those memories alive.
When you go places, do you really see the connection between the young generation as they come out to grasp what that sacrifice was?
Yeah, there's lots of different connections. Some people have a family member who flew, and most likely they passed on, and a lot of those guys didn't talk too much about it, and now those families would like to learn more about what they did and what happened then. Some of their family members flew maybe a B-29 or a C-47 or the particular airplane that we have at an event. And so for them to be able to climb in the airplane or maybe even go for a ride in it, see, feel, and touch and smell what it was really like is a way for them to reach back and touch their ancestor.
With the crew commander.
Yes.
Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Where have you taken the plane?
I've been touring with this and the B-24 Liberator for the last 7-8 years, and I've been all over the U.S. with it. In fact, last year we went up to Canada with it for 6 weeks. So we get around East Coast, West Coast.
Is it a great enthusiasm when people see the plane?
Regardless of where you go, it's really heartwarming, because there's always people that come up and are so happy to see the airplane, so thankful that we're maintaining it. And it gives us a point of pride because we're volunteers. We believe in the mission. It's rewarding to see that we can do this with these beautifully maintained airplanes and connect with these people.
Have there been any movies with B-29s?
Well, this one's been in a lot of movies. The Right Stuff, you know, the Enola Gay.
During the war, with the B-29s, when they go to drop their bombs, would they typically encounter a lot of anti-aircraft?
You know, I'm friends really with a guy who was Central Fire Control guy. Sat in the back on the chair looking out the top. And he said there were 4 of us on the airplane who had a view of the target for hundreds of miles, and that was very difficult to look at. So coming into target, you know, minute after minute after minute, they're watching this. It's like approaching doom.
Hey, I'm John Hess. I'm one of the volunteers for the Liberty Foundation. Today we're here with a B-17 called Ye Olde Pub. It's painted after the airplane in the book called A Higher Call. It's probably one of the most incredible stories of World War II. So that's the great thing about the Ye Olde Pub story we're trying to tell, is that there's some great World War II stories out there that we love for people to find out about. This was built in 1944, before the end of the war. It didn't go over and see service. Memphis Belle in the Air Force Museum in Dayton is one of the airplanes that saw combat. But this one was built towards the end of the war, and it was a test bed. It had a radar pod where the ball turret, the bottom ball turret is, and it was where they were testing this mapping, so they could actually use the radar to map. Instead of having to see through the clouds with the Norden bomb sight, they could map the area and know where they are and be above the cloud. Pathfinder is what this was.
How fast does this plane go?
Normal cruise for this airplane at low altitude is about 230 miles an hour. You know, in World War II, for instance, in the Pacific, when they were up at high altitude, it would be 300 miles an hour or a little faster. By World War II standards, this is a very fast airplane.
This is it. This is the B-29, the plane you've been waiting for. And it was worth waiting for. It's the biggest, fastest, mightiest heavy bomber in the world.
And one of the lessons of World War II is what we can do with technology when we as a country are all focused on a common goal. In World War II, not only did we save the world from tyranny, but we created a tremendous amount of technology in that period, like we did in the space race, that paid off for many, many years.
We did have the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and you played a role in that.
That's right. The CAF sent 2 of our airplanes along with 13 other American airplanes that flew across the North Atlantic, retraced the steps of the routes that the original C-47s flew when they were going to Normandy 75 years ago in World War II. We were fortunate enough to be able to fly down the coast at Normandy Beach in front of the U.S. and French presidents on June 6th. And that was an incredibly emotional experience for me personally as a pilot, but more importantly, it garnered a lot of national attention. And again, congruent with our mission, which is to keep these stories alive and make people aware. So there were millions of people that saw the news stories and understood and learned what happened there. We did many flights up and down the beach while we were there. No doubt about it, you know, to see all those crosses and who recognized the price that was paid for our freedom and the freedom of all of Europe 75 years ago when those courageous young Americans walked on the beach. It's breathtaking.
Doug, I want to thank you for being on the show, and thank you for all the commemorative Air Force is doing throughout the country to instill in our next generation the need to protect freedom.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having us on the show. And it's, we're here to share those stories, and we appreciate your help doing that.
Now, if somebody wants to reach you guys, what are they?
CommemorativeAirForce.org.
We'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture. Celebrating Culture is brought to you by AWE News. AWE News also produces New Orleans Insider Tours, which are 10 self-guided tours of New Orleans and Louisiana. To download the apps, all you have to do is point your phone at the flow code in the camera mode, and you're ready to really experience Louisiana. Welcome back to Celebrating Culture. I'm here with Pat Gallagher, who is the Chaplain General of the Daughters of 1812. Pat, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure to be here.
Your family heritage goes back before the War of 1812.
Well, I, like most women who are in these various organizations, I can trace my ancestors back to the Revolutionary War. My mother's family came into Virginia. My father's family came into Massachusetts. My ancestors that I can document were in the Revolutionary War, French and Indian War, the War of 1812, World War I, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father in World War II, my brothers in Vietnam, my current nephew is in the military. So yes, I come from a long line of patriots of a military family, and we're very proud of that.
In these organizations that came out, it was about promoting patriotism.
Absolutely. You are to honor the person that fought in whatever war, and to show how patriotic we still are, and that you don't forget someone who passed away or the deeds that they did and the reason they did it. They did it for the right reasons for their country. With a clear conscience, they went to war. They came home, some of them battered, the ones that came home. Some of them never came home. We call them boys because when they went off to war, they were boys, but if and when they came home, they were men. We're proud of that, and it has nothing to do with anything but saying, I'm proud of my granddaddy for being the honorable man that he was, so being respectful of your ancestors.
We have a new day which started a few years ago called Wreaths across America.
This is a good time for all heritage organizations and all genealogical organizations to get together and honor the military. Wreaths Across America was started some time ago. They do a beautiful presentation in Arlington Cemetery, but now it's all over the United States. At exactly 12 o'clock, we all place wreaths on all the graves of all military, all wars. And if you're in a cemetery that has someone from World War I, they get a wreath. We place wreaths on Union soldiers and Confederate soldiers. It's about honoring the military.
You have a lot of people that turn out to help.
We absolutely have the Junior ROTC, we have Boy Scouts, we have Girl Scouts, we have Brownies, we have some Lions Club, some VFW groups who come and help us. And as it grows over the years, more and more people want to get involved because it's a minimal cost to say thank you for your service.
I'm with Dorothy Childress, who is very active in the Wreaths Across America program. What makes you so motivated about Wreaths Across America?
Wreaths Across America actually is a program that, when was first introduced to me, hit very dear to home. I come from a very long line of military family, so the program in and of itself is a way to teach my children how to honor veterans at Christmas. We explain to the people who arrive that as long as you say a soldier's name, man, woman, airman, sailor, they will never be forgotten. So when we go and place this wreath upon their grave, you are remembering them and what they did forever.
When you get to a grave, place a wreath with a bow at the top. The top of the wreath should be just below the last name. Straighten out the bow and level the wreath. And then, if you choose, stand back, read the name on the stone aloud, and if you choose, by all means, say a prayer. And if you're a military person, a salute is certainly appropriate. I think if we teach our children to do that, we've taught them things they may not learn at school or other places.
As a veteran myself, United States Marine Corps, and that's right, Semper Fi, and a Gulf War veteran, to know that this community honors its veterans. Everybody who's served, it makes it worthwhile when we know, even when we're gone from this earth physically, that our community remembers us.
There was a great turnout. How many wreaths did you guys have?
We had just over 200 wreaths. Different organizations basically adopt a cemetery. They raise the funds or have people donate wreaths to put on each individual grave. This year they had over 1.6 million wreaths. at across 2,000 cemeteries.
You can see people coming out to honor the military across the state. For instance, I went to Monroe. They had 7 wreaths for all the different branches of the service. You go to Port Hudson, which is by Baton Rouge, and they had an event.
They did. In Port Hudson, there is a patriotic military motorcyclist association that has adopted this one particular cemetery.
It was amazing. They had at least 300 or 400 wreaths there. There's 4,000 military men buried there. We're here at Washington Artillery Monument, and this is a monument to a group that actually goes from the Civil War to World War I to World War II to Korea. So this is actually a way that it's generational. When I think back of Memorial Day, that's got its founding with the United Daughters of the Confederacy up in Mississippi.
Absolutely. It was 2 women that decided that, very similar to Wreaths Across America, that they wanted to go in and remember their loved ones that had passed away. It's been fabulous to see that a movement that was started between 2 women that just wanted to remember their brothers, their nephews, their cousins, how fully it expanded into something so much more.
Now, if somebody wants to know more about Wreaths Across America or how to get involved, what should they do?
Wreaths Across America has their own website. If you want to go ahead and volunteer and start your own program, go in there and there's a place that says sponsor a cemetery.
Our New Orleans Insider Tour app features a Statue, Stories, and Spirits tour. There are over 150 markers that all have a little story. Here, we're at the marker to Edward Wisner. He invented a pump and drained over 30,000 acres of land. The royalties of gas and oil now go to New Orleans, Tulane, LSU, and the Salvation Army. Download our tour to make your stay in New Orleans extra special. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We hope you've enjoyed this episode on those organizations making an extra effort to honor our veterans. Honoring our veterans started after the Revolutionary War and continued through the War of 1812. However, after the Civil War, we had thousands of wounded. Here on Bayou St. John in New Orleans, Louisiana, Camp Nichols Home opened in 1882 and was open for 50 years to care for thousands of wounded in the Civil War. The VA and the VFW do a great job in caring for our veterans, but we need to do more. We need to help those organizations that make that extra effort. So I ask you to get involved, whether it's through your time or through a donation, and helping out and respecting our veterans. The need to care for our military is always there because they cared for us.